Over the past 60 years, ITV has opened up a window into the world of our shared history.
Beats the Mini any day.
Would you let your girlfriend wear them?
I'd let my girlfriend and my wife.
In this series, we're celebrating an extraordinary archive of real-life footage from across the country.
Could you tell me what at this precise moment you're thinking about?
That young lady going by there.
Clips that show just how much all of our lives have changed. From our summer holidays to a night down the pub.
Men only have been drinking in this bar for over 60 years. In fact, I'm the first woman who's been allowed in.
So prepare for a nostalgic trip through a very different country.
During the 28 years that you've lived up this tree, have you ever spent a night in the house?
No.
You never have?
No.
This was Britain as seen on ITV. Tonight, we're travelling back in time to see how the way we've got from A to B has changed over the decades. Now, that doesn't surprise me. That car hasn't been serviced since 1979. If 60 years of TV history has shown us anything, it's that things really have moved on. So let's go back to a world of horse-drawn carriages, the age of steam, and a time well before sat-navs. Yeah, definitely should have taken a left at the lights. We start with a look at how, in the early 60s, the motor car was at last becoming an affordable luxury for millions of British families.
There's a report out today that says some drivers love their cars more than they love their wives. Do you?
Well, yes, I do love my car, yes.
Would you love the car more than your wife?
Yes, now, yes.
Looks like someone's sleeping on the sofa tonight. Between 1950 and 1960, the number of cars on our roads more than doubled. By 1961, over 10 million of us had a vehicle of our own. And for those who were new to motoring, Anglia TV prepared this handy guide.
The motor car. Here is one, evidently abandoned. It looks like a car. To be honest, it is a car. It's very much the same as any other car. It has, to take an example, 4 wheels. 1 wheel, 2 wheels, and at the back, 3 wheels and 4 wheels. Oh, well, if we're going to be pedantic, then 5 wheels. Oh, all right, 6 wheels. 1 at each corner, 1 at the back, and 1 in the middle. An ordinary car. But this is no ordinary car, at least not to its owner. To him, it's more than a plaything, it's a person. Perhaps even a wife.
Oh dear, I think there's a name for that.
Now, this one is a revealing relationship. Obviously, these two are newlyweds. Just look at the tender care with which the owner treats his bride. Car. But one must be realistic, and we can tell from the start this marriage is doomed. This man, unfortunately, is a born tinkerer. He can't leave anything alone. He's even trying to interfere with what goes on under there. Marriage wrecker. Yes, you brute.
Just imagine how excited that chap would have been at the Earl's Court Motor Show in London, where the latest models were on display. Some of them cars.
My first impression of the 1964 motor show is that chassis are very similar and that bodies are just as nice as they were last year. But it's really motor cars that we've come to talk about, and to talk to me is Sheila Van Dam. This is a virtually new car. What have you got to say about it?
I think it's got a very attractive name. It's called the Chamois.
Well, that's why we had Gilda in, because she's got chamois built into her dress.
I'm all for it, actually.
Let's move on to the next stand, shall we?
As you were, Gilda.
This is what's been described as the Big Mini. It's the new 1800cc version of the transverse engine. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a very potent motor car.
Incidentally, they conveniently halved this one so that we can see inside. Now, how does the seating arrangement strike you now that you can really have a good look at it?
Well, the seats look very good and very comfortable.
Then, as now, car shows like this proved an ideal way for manufacturers to display the latest in style, technology and comfort, with the odd glamorous model thrown in for decoration. But a search deep into the ITV archive shows us that behind the scenes, engineers were hard at work trying to give this growing nation of motorists a smooth ride. Not that it looks particularly smooth for this ITV presenter in Sheffield, reporting on a machine invented to simulate the vibrations of the modern car.
Mr. Watts, you're the senior experimental officer in this department. Now I've actually stopped vibrating. How exactly does this chair work?
Well, underneath the chair where you're sitting, there is a piston and a cylinder which is being driven by oil pressure. And this drives the chair up and down. Now, the whole thing is controlled by that little computer over there.
Little computer?
Which tells the chair what to do.
I should have warned you. The pictures are a little shaky. And 8 years later, ITV viewers would be amongst the first to see another breakthrough in modern car technology. This was a feature on the brand new luxurious Aston Martin Lagonda, rolling off the production line at a factory in Newport Pagnell. But it turned out to be a luxury that very few of us could afford.
The car costs £32,650, and if you order one today, you'll be lucky if you receive it within the next 2 years. Certainly, the dashboard and driving compartment is unlike anything else on four wheels. To start with, there's no less than 72 quite separate touch-button controls. 6 buttons look after the automatic gearbox. Other buttons give you digital displays of average speed since starting your journey, as well as average fuel consumption.
What sort of people are going to buy this car?
Well, all sorts of people. They have one common denominator, I think, and that is they can all afford it. You don't find your average tearaway owning cars like this.
In looks, you either like the shape of the new Aston Martin Lagonda, or you hate it.
For those of us who couldn't stretch to a car that cost 10 times the average annual wage back then, well, there was always the option of travelling by bus or train. But as this Granada TV documentary from a decade earlier revealed, the wheels of evolution were turning on the railways too. By 1968, traditional steam engines were being phased out and new, more efficient diesel locomotives were taking their place.
The new labourer is square and strong, anonymous and untemperamental. It will tow you a Queen to Sandringham or coals to Newcastle. And in this day and age, it was almost bound to succeed in business, since it can face both ways at once.
But it wasn't just the trains that were changing, it was also the communities that once kept them running.
Carnforth itself is more a railway town than anything else. Even its largest hotel is the Royal Station. Royal because Queen Victoria left her train across the road one morning and popped in here for breakfast. The present landlady is Molly Town.
Most of the men that live in Carnforth and the outlying districts of Carnforth are employed by the railway.
What about the customers you get here?
Oh, we get quite a lot of customers who come train spotting. Get various types of customers, from physicians, surgeons, labourers, gardeners, even the occasional vicar.
That will be this chap then. But if he's only an occasional vicar, I wonder what he does with the rest of his time.
When did your own love of the steam engine start?
I suppose when I was a child. Early as I can remember, always found pleasure in sitting on a railway bank or being in a railway shed when permission was granted or something like that.
Well, the railway enthusiast may be the Peter Pan, but British Rail has grown into the Captain Hook of the situation. And turning its back on sentiment has condemned every last steamer to death by economy. So, for those who still care, there's not much time left. And they hurry and scurry to record what they can of the last days of steam.
Still to come on Britain as seen on ITV. There's something fishy going on the number 15 to Wolverhampton.
I hope you get indigestion.
We'll find out why sales were taking off for this aeroplane entrepreneur.
Is that the right idea for you? 4 seats?
Yeah, cow-proof fine, yeah. I doubt if it's cow-proof.
And we'll meet this chap who seems to be doing a grand job running a revolutionary new traffic control system.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our coach trip down memory lane. Tonight we're digging deep into 60 years of glorious ITV archive to celebrate our love of planes, trains and automobiles. And if you recognise any of these people, please do call Crime Stoppers. But ITV history shows that not all of our transport innovations have taken off as successfully as this.
Good day.
I mean, does anyone remember these?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Sinclair C5.
The C5 uses the recumbent cycle layout in that you sit down to it. The chassis beneath the bodywork is a backbone made out of steel from Lotus. It's got pneumatic tyres, and although it doesn't have to have them by law, this electrically assisted tricycle has got lights. Will it catch on? That, as ever, is up to you.
Unfortunately, it didn't. In fact, only 4 out of 10 C5s made in 1985 were actually sold before Sinclair vehicles went into receivership. But ITV's cameras haven't just recorded changes in what we travel in, they've also documented the evolution of what we travel on. And in 1968, a Yorkshire television crew was dispatched to film the extraordinary construction of a motorway that would revolutionise the treacherous trip across the north of England. Plans for the M62, now the 3rd busiest motorway in Britain, were explained to ITV viewers by this chap from the Ministry of Transport.
The road under construction links the Manchester area, the East Pennine towns, with Leeds, Bradford, Huddersfield, ultimately, one hopes, through to Hull. By breaking down this Pennine barrier and linking these two important industrial areas, we should create one area that will compare with any in the world.
For a man with such grand designs, you'd think he could have built himself a better office, wouldn't you? Work had been underway since the mid-60s, cutting a path through the unforgiving Pennines. Just a shame nobody told this pair the road wouldn't be ready for a good few years yet. Well, unless of course you had a vehicle like this.
This job is different. The whole geography is against us. The weather conditions are against us. They're extremely adverse. Up here in the Pennines, you get these steep, very steep, sheer-sided valleys. In some cases, 160 feet deep. The whole terrain is dangerous. The weather itself, extreme adverse weather conditions. This is the only part of the world, quite seriously, where you can actually get thick fog and a howling gale at the same time. You've got to experience it to believe it. It's eerie. It's a whole test for man and machine.
Thrust, push, claw your way through. Keep going, lad. You're the first bloke to cross the Pennines along the M62. You've got a bucket there that'll pick up a family car. One slip and you've dropped 10 ton on the chap below.
Oh, it's no bloody joke working on the M62. In the winter time, you're frozen to death. In the summertime, you do 12 hours, and if it's hot, you choke with dust. By the time you get home, it's 9:15. Have your evening meal and it's bedtime, and that's the end of the day.
Yes, but apart from that, do you enjoy your job? After 7 years of construction, this crucial stretch of motorway opened in 1970. Looks like that couple got on their way after all. And not a tailback to be seen. Sadly, the same couldn't be said in our towns and cities, where concerns about traffic congestion have been brewing as early as 1963.
Today, there are 10,530,710 vehicles registered in Britain. By 1970, there will be 18 million. 1980, 25 million. And by the year 2010, 40 million. 1 car to every 2 people, and nearly 4 times as many vehicles as there are today.
It was 34 million, actually, but not a bad guess. And those clever professors of transport even went as far as predicting what a typical London rush hour might look like.
Life is going to be a living hell.
So, what could be done to prevent this impending Carmageddon?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
But as this clip from ATV in the Midlands shows, that wasn't the opinion of one council in 1966. They decided to employ Big Brother-type techniques to get the roads flowing again.
Well, here in the city of Leicester, an experiment has been taking place in traffic control of the city's transport department, the buses. It uses television cameras and mobile-operated controlled buses.
Control to 1, control to 1.
2 to 3. Number 3. Let me see anything coming down our street. 41, etc. Over. Thank you.
In addition to these high-tech radios, the control centre had not 1, but 3 then state-of-the-art television sets. Though these were the days before computers, where the blackboard and white chalk still ruled. But over the years, we haven't just used our vehicles for getting to work. They've also offered us the road to freedom.
It's holiday time in Britain. You can tell that by the weather. And for those of us who can't afford 2 weeks in a nice hotel, this, the 5.5-litre, air-conditioned, 4-berth, hi-fi fitted, oak-panelled, microwave-ovened, plush-carpeted Cobra Supreme might well be the answer. Except that, if you can't actually afford 2 weeks in a nice hotel, then at a basic £19,500, you may well not be able to afford the Cobra Supreme either. You might just about run to its bathroom for a week.
Never mind. For those on a more modest budget, there was always a more affordable option.
The Caravan. 350,000 on the road already and selling at 40,000 a year in this country alone. But as they roll off the line, I can't help wondering how well these bath, come bed, come sitting, come dining rooms work. It's one thing to talk about caravans, but another to live in them.
In this episode of The Shape of Things to Come, presenter Brian Truman put the latest caravans to the test. Although it does look like it's the caravan that's testing him.
I found turning the bedroom into the breakfast room like doing a 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle in the bath.
Go on, Brian. You can do it.
This strange device isn't a splint for a broken leg. It's a 14-inch bunk. Or, I suppose, a spaghetti store.
Their rocketing popularity meant caravans were big business, and manufacturers were soon spending time and money researching exactly what it was their customers wanted.
We have 2 basic restrictions. One is that it's said that people are superstitious about green, and so we tried to avoid anything that looks too green.
Hello, sofa.
And because we don't have a particularly warm climate, we should avoid blues.
In the late 1970s, annual caravan sales were almost double what they are today. In a time before many families travelled abroad, it seemed the perfect solution for those wanting a bit of freedom to venture out around Britain. And yet 12 years earlier, ITV's World Tomorrow series had told us that when it came to future travel, we should all look to the skies. It suggested that buying a plane of our own wouldn't always be just for the high flyers amongst us.
Aeroplane flying will come within the range of the average man in the street.
The modern aeroplane is purely a motor car with a pair of wings on it. It's about as easy to fly, a jolly sight safer and much more relaxing.
The programme even went to America to show us how private plane ownership was already taking off over there, or in this case, just landing.
Gene Kiddu, a farm machinery salesman, arrives home from work. Home is a house on the Sierra Sky Park, Fresno, California. Kiddu and 104 neighbours are pioneers in living with your aeroplane. All the streets on the Sky Park are wide enough to accommodate both cars and planes.
With our stateside cousins already seemingly on board, surely it was only a matter of time before us lot over here would be landing Cessnas in Sydenham and Pipers in Preston.
The man with a limousine, a cigar and a hangar full of second-hand planes to sell is Raymond Way.
Everybody that feels they want to buy a plane, buy one. You never know what the man does for a living. We serve all sorts of funny people: solicitors, barristers, barrow boys, lorry drivers, bank robbers.
Bank robbers? And how exactly will Sir be paying today? Use banknotes or gold bullion?
Hello, Mr. Manor. How are you? Buying another aeroplane? Have a cigar. What's that?
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, what have you got?
What, for sale?
Yeah.
Plenty of aeroplanes. Is that the right idea for you? 4 seats?
Yeah.
Cowproof?
Fine, yeah. I doubt if it's cowproof. They are pretty tough cows in Lincolnshire, you know.
Whether they were cowproof or not, this aircraft salesman must have been doing something right. In 1966, he was said to be selling 2.5 planes a week, which does beg the question, who on earth was buying only half a plane? Private aircraft ownership never did take off in Britain. Over the decades, this form of transport has proved far more within our price range. But behaviour on the buses was causing one Birmingham councillor problems in 1972, as this ITV news report shows. She had a real chip on her shoulder.
What's incensed you so much about people who eat fish and chips, really?
Well, first of all, the horrible smell, greasy fingers, and when they've finished eating, they put the paper on the floor. Sometimes they don't even screw it up. And I say I have been downstairs and seen them put the chips they've dropped in the
used ticket box?
The used ticket box.
Thought so.
I have seen that done, yes.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Now what's he up to? There's definitely something fishy going on here.
You see, if we live in a democracy, a free country, why shouldn't we be allowed to eat fish and chips on top of a bus?
Because it happens to be a public transport. People getting from one place to the other. If you want to eat fish and chips, there's a fish and chip shop all along the road.
Come on, Good morning, Linda. Would you like a chip?
No, thank you. If I want to pass the time going from A to B, I'll read a book or something, but certainly not eat fish and chips. And I hope you get indigestion.
Well, that's put him in his place. And it looks like our journey through 60 years of extraordinary archive is over for another week. But join us next time on Britain as Seen on ITV when we celebrate how we've always had talent.
Some of the Ghana.
It'll be all singing
Away from me.
and all dancing.
I firmly believe that the Big Bang era is coming back.
And heaven only knows what this was all about. Simon Cowell, look away now.